Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. Happy Sunday, everyone. Today's guest is Charlie Waldrep, I'm not going to say old OLD friend. I'm going to say OLE friend, and from Woodlawn. Good old West End boy here. Welcome to the show again, Charlie.
Glad to be here, Tommy. Thanks for having me on.
So I was getting prepared for this, and I thought I would review what you said before, and you told me that it had been very difficult for you to get on this show. And as we closed that show, you said, I hope it's not 3 years again before I'm on again. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it has been 3 years since we've talked to you.
It's been 3 productive years.
I'm hopeful that you can shed some light on some things that have improved since our last conversation about intergovernmental relations here in Jefferson County primarily. As our viewers know, we're a county that's made up of 30 plus municipalities, and there's a lot of waste and inefficiency in the operation of certain governmental functions. I want to start with the Personnel Board and how you think that might have hampered our ability to overcome some unification of services between the various municipalities here in Jefferson County.
Let me say this. To really understand the Personnel Board, you have to know a bit about the history of the Personnel Board. It was created in the late 30s, 1937, as I recall. And before that, there was no civil service protection in Jefferson County. There was a lawyer named Horace Wilkinson, and he was for lack of a better term, he was the go-to person if you wanted employment with the county government or the city of Birmingham government. And at that time, the city of Birmingham was a large employer in the public sector. There was only one state senator from Jefferson County, and that was Jim Simpson. And Simpson and Wilkinson had been political cronies and had supported each other, but they had a falling out. And when they did, Simpson, the state senator, was concerned about all this patronage that Horace Wilkinson had. In fact, to give you just an idea of the kind of patronage that Wilkinson had as a lawyer, his law office was in the old Frank Nelson building. And he had a sign in his office that said, if you are here seeking a job with the city, please come after 5 p.m. So he was really like an HR personnel director. And the way you got the job is because you had contributed or supported the particular candidates. Well, Simpson, knowing that he had that sort of influence, felt like he had to negate his formerly old friend. And to do that, he got the legislature to pass a bill that created the Jefferson County Personnel Board. And usually personnel boards are only for a particular political entity, but Simpson made it applicable to county employees, city of Birmingham employees, Tarrant employees, the Bessemer, the known municipalities at that time. So once you took that civil service protection and you gave it to public employees, it really defused a person like Horace Wilkinson. Now, that's why we have this multi-jurisdictional board. I don't know of any other place in the country that has as many different entities that are part of their personnel board system as we have in the Jefferson County Personnel Board. Now, Jefferson County Personnel Board does a terrific job. They do a really good job. The downside to that is that it's very expensive, especially for you smaller municipalities. It costs each municipality about $1,100 a year per employee for them to be a member of the board. And it's not an option for them. Hoover is not a member of the personnel board because when they became large enough to be a member, which takes 4,000 or more population, they actually extended into Shelby County. So since they were in 2 counties, they never were covered by the act. Hoover has about 100,000 people that live there. They have a large number of employees. They have no personnel board. They have a human resources department. And that's what does all their hiring, firing. They have employee discipline like you would anywhere else. They have an appeal process, but they don't have a personnel board, to my knowledge. And they have a huge savings. Birmingham has over 3,000 employees, so they're paying over $3 million a year, and they have an HR department. And it would seem to me that that would be a starting point to allow cities to opt in or opt out. And those who want to stay in it, they should stay in it. And the ones who want to create a personnel board system of their own, then they should be. Shelby County has personnel boards for virtually every municipality, plus the sheriff's department, plus the county commission. None of them have a staff. None of them are paid. Their testing is done with what I call off-the-shelf test. Rarely do you hear about any litigation that arises from them, and they work fine. So I'm just saying, don't dissolve the personnel board for Jefferson County by any means, but allow people an option to stay in it or stay out of it. And those who get out, they have to replace it with something. Most of them already have an HR department that does some of this work already. And with the cost savings, they could repurpose that money and put it into other needs that the community has.
Well, we're not going to be able to get all of this in, but I trust the legislation came out of the 50s or 60s?
In the 30s.
Oh, that legislation was in the 30s.
Yes, late 30s. I want to say 1937.
So those people that think it was put in place purely to give an equal playing field to all people that wanted certain jobs are mistaken. That's not its purpose.
No, that was not the political impetus. That's what it did, and it gave them protection, civil service protection. But you've got everybody that's under the same system, whether it's in Mountain Brook or Fultondale or Gardendale or Bessemer, and you've got the same type examinations being given for different cities with different populations. So I'm just saying, give citizens an option about whether they want to be in or be out. That's all.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Charlie Waldrep. This is Our Issues Birmingham. Don't go away. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. Today's guest, Charlie Waldrep, a man who I've known for a while and knows a lot about intergovernmental relations. So we're trying to make more efficient the services provided to the community instead of what we have now. I know from my own personal knowledge that Birmingham City does not wish to be in the jail business. We have a jail. It's located on 6th Avenue South. I don't think the neighborhood wants the jail. I think the use of that property is better spent elsewhere. What would you do to try to consolidate that aspect of the government for the city of Birmingham, and who would you throw in there with them to help do that?
Well, this is still an idea that is timely, but is perhaps a little less timely than it was the last time we spoke, because since then, at that time, I think Mountain Brook was building a jail. Homewood has now got a state-of-the-art jail. Hoover has had a jail for 20 years. Vestavia Hills has built a jail. So those entities probably would want to keep their own jails, but you still have about 30 municipalities that have inmates that need a place that they can put these inmates that would be cheaper for everybody. So we've gone from talking about how on one system with a personnel board, you've got a number of people that are all lumped in together, and maybe it's not as efficient as we'd like for it to be. But now we can talk about how can we bring people together in another entity where there are some economies of scale. I'm familiar with one municipality, and it's not Bessemer, Birmingham, but one municipality that is spending $750,000 a year or upward on operation cost only for the jail. Now, if we could take that and look across the spectrum at the other cities, some are going to be perhaps more, some are going to be less. But if we could take the Birmingham jail, which is in desperately need of being torn down, that's a facility that was built for 400 inmates. It's over 50 years old.
I think they have about 100 people.
And now it's a max day is 125 inmates. Usually it runs between 85 and 100. So it's way overbuilt and it's not meeting code standards. So if you take Birmingham and what their operating costs are, you take Bessemer that the city needs a jail, you take those two and you put them with the county that's already at max capacity with the two jails in Birmingham and Bessemer, and you come up with some regional correctional authority. And that could either be done by creating a legislative act, but it could actually be done without the legislature if you had an intergovernmental operating agreement where they come together and operate a jail. Or it may be as simple as the county commission coming up with a funding mechanism for a unified jail, and each of the municipalities contracting with that facility for the provision of inmate care.
But, well, except for the county.
Pardon?
Except for the county.
Okay.
The municipalities, I really struggle with who's going to go, how many people are going to be in jail for an expired tag or a speeding ticket or even a DUI. I mean, there's so many alternative ways to deal with that now. I recognize that there are some people that do go to jail at the municipal court level. But in a practical sense, they don't really need that much space. And the county has a very valuable piece of land that certainly would be better suited for something else from a revenue generating standpoint than what's there now, which is a liability. That's my opinion.
Correct. That is a very valuable piece of property, and Sheriff Petway has been quite outspoken about wanting to have a regional facility and about the economies that would bring. And you make a good point about municipalities not putting that many people in jail. Here's the but there are, and you're very aware of this, that there are some requirements that people be incarcerated. There's no option, but they have to be incarcerated. And sometimes it's overnight, sometimes it's for an extended period of time, depending on the particular case. And to do that, you've got to have the jail, the staffed. You can't call people at home and say, hey, we've got somebody in jail, it's time to go to work. These need to be trained correctional officers or sworn police officers. And then you've got to have the meals that are served. And then you got to have the health care that's provided. It just doesn't make sense. It would be such more cost effective if we had one regional jail, put in the distancing cameras there with closed circuits so that the inmate never had to appear in court, and you didn't have the transportation costs that are involved. And it would really save a great deal of money. And that money could be repurposed for whatever reason, but it would be better to do that than it would be to continue this hodgepodge checkerboard that we have of jails in every community. And that's what we have right now. We literally have small penal institutions in every one of these incorporated areas. Okay,
we've got about 30 seconds left. So you're saying this is doable? And is it doable in a relatively short term? When I say short term, 3 to 5 years maybe? Or
no,
shorter?
I think you could do this in 24 to 36 months. St. Clair County has a local $20 per case fee that's imposed that's going to build a $60-some-odd million regional facility. It can be done in Jefferson County. We'll
talk about something else when we come back from break. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We've been talking about trying to make more efficient certain services that are offered in our greater Birmingham area that are a bit deficient as we speak. We've been talking about it for years, but we need to really make something happen. And I'm hopeful that at least a piece of this show will motivate some people in authority to start moving in that direction. We have tremendous waste, no pun intended, in the waste business. Am I wrong about that?
You're right on. I mean, when we're talking about the personnel board, I can see where viewers might say, well, I'm not impacted by that. I don't work for any of these city or county government agencies, so that's of no benefit one way or the other to me.
But we all have garbage.
And if we say we're talking about a regional jail, you can say, I'm never going to jail, so I'm not concerned. But everybody is impacted by garbage pickup, garbage collection, and what that costs. And it's going up, it's not going down. Recently, you had the over the mountain cities, Hoover, Vestavia, Mountain Brook, Homewood, along with Trussville, as I recall, some Shelby County municipalities, even down to Chilton County, who created the Cahaba Solid Waste Authority, which I thought was really brilliant. I wish that it's something I could take credit for or say that I worked on it, but I didn't. I read about it when it came out in the paper, and I thought, well, this is really a step in the right direction and very foresighted on the part of those cities. But what it's going to do is allow them to get out of having to contract for pickup and disposal of garbage, or not. For those who want to be in the garbage collection business, they will still be in that business. For those who want to use city employees, for those who want to contract it out, they can contract it out. But what they all do together is they all dispose it at the same place. And that's where the real economies come in. A garbage disposal dump, they call it airspace that's in there. And the more airspace you have, then the more you have to fill up, and the more you have that goes in, the less it is per ton for what they call a tip fee. So this has been
this is a cost to the municipal entity, to the governmental entity.
Yes, it's a big savings to them to do that. Now that leaves an opportunity for those who are not part of that, who geographically are perhaps too far removed. That would be the Birmingham, the Bessemers, all of the municipalities in North Jefferson County. All of them could come together and create a North Jefferson or a Warrior, or you name it, whatever you want to, solid waste authority. And there is already legislation in place that allows you to do that. You don't have to use an intergovernmental agreement. And it would be, in my opinion, huge savings for them to be in that. It would allow them that same flexibility of either collecting the garbage or outsourcing that if they wanted to, but they would all dispose it in the same place. And at the end of the year, you just true up on what the savings are, and everybody gets a dividend check like a co-op. So Birmingham is the 2,000-pound gorilla. It has all of this garbage that they have, and they've got two landfills that really need to be closed, the Eastern Area Landfill and the New Georgia Landfill. Both of those could be repurposed as transfer stations and not closed, and then just take the garbage to another disposal site. I think that's an idea that hopefully some of the municipalities will be looking at. And there's already places that you could go to. There's a couple of landfills, one that's privately owned and one that the county owns, that would be adequate for that. There's others in Walker County. There's places that you can look to that are north of Birmingham that would work. The other idea before we go, Tommy, I wanted to talk about briefly.
Well, that's what I wanted to do, shift gears into, as a former municipal judge, and we're talking about economies of scale.
Yeah.
People are poor that are in a municipal court more often than not. And they're not able to pay exorbitant fines, the outrageous court costs that the legislative bodies keep saddling the people that can least afford to pay it with. So we have a community service option that would give back to the community in return for whatever violation they may have. We used to have an organization called Hands On Birmingham. I don't know if we still do or not, but we could consolidate a central point where people that needed community service could reach out, hey, I need some workers this week for this. Can you think the governments, or is there a way to make the governments come together for that issue?
Not a way to make them come together, but there's a way that they could come together. They could just all agree that they're going to put some money based on the per capita population and fund, and it would not take a great deal of funding to have an executive director and some office staff as a clearinghouse for community service. You've hit the nail on the head. As a former judge and as a lawyer, you know the number of people that you've represented that just can't afford to pay the fine that they would have to pay, but they have some time and they do have transportation to get to a community service. And these community service providers that have these volunteers, they really use them and they actually work at it, and it's good for the community. And these aren't people out picking up trash on the side of the road necessarily. Oftentimes they're working at a thrift store, they're working at Habitat, they're doing things that better the community. If we had a way that we could send them to one location, have somebody there keep up with the time, report back to the court, be a huge savings and a huge benefit to this entire metro area.
Well, I think what you and I can do, and hopefully some people that are watching the show today can do, is to try to instigate some action on behalf of those people in authority who can put these things we've talked about today into action. I want to thank you for being with us today. I know you've got court starting in just a bit. Hope it goes well for you. I hope you mete out a lot of justice in there, okay? This
We're
is our
try,
issue.
and I really appreciate the opportunity of being with you.
Always good to be with you. This is
so
Our Issues Birmingham. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Whether it's advice on managing your anxiety or tools to help you stay grounded, Coping-19 provides a range of resources and self-care tips to help you cope with this pandemic. We can help. Find the resources that work best for you at coping-19.org.